Time is one of the greatest blessings that Allah has given us, yet it's the one we most often take for granted. When we open the Qur'an, we find something remarkable. Allah swears by time itself. By time, indeed mankind is in loss. Think about that. The creator of time, the one who controls every second that passes, swears an oath by it, and Allah doesn't swear by something insignificant. Every time Allah swears by something in the Qur'an, it's to draw our attention, to wake us up to its importance. So when he says, by time, indeed mankind is in loss, he is warning us, time is not just passing, it's taking us with it. Every second that ticks away is a part of your life that will never return. We measure our lives in years, but in reality, it's being spent in moments. Each breath, each heartbeat is a countdown or reminder that our time on this earth is limited, and it's slipping away whether we notice it or not. The Prophet FDFA gave us a powerful reminder when he said, take advantage of 5 before 5, your youth before your old age, your health before your sickness, your wealth before your poverty, your free time before your busyness, and your life before your death. This hadith isn't just a moral lesson, it's a call to awareness. It teaches us that time isn't just something we spend, it's something we're entrusted with. Every moment carries the potential to either elevate us closer to Allah or distance us further from Him. From a psychological point of view, we often underestimate time because it feels infinite. We wake up assuming tomorrow will come, that we'll have more chances to pray better, to reconnect with family, to fix what's broken in our lives. But the truth is, our attachment to the illusion of tomorrow blinds us to the gift of now. Time feels abundant, but it's actually the most fragile thing we possess. Once gone, it's gone forever. No power, no wealth, no influence can bring back a single second, and philosophically, time defines existence itself. Without time, there's no past, no future, only the eternal present of Allah. We live within the limits of time while Allah transcends it. So when we waste time, we are not just losing productivity, we're neglecting a divine trust, a part of our soul's journey that will be accounted for. Imagine if we began to view every minute as a piece of our akhirah, every conversation, every thought, every moment of silence as a seed planted for eternity. How different would our lives look? How much peace would we feel knowing that our time was being used for something meaningful? The reality is simple yet profound. Time is life. To waste time is to waste life itself. The clock does not stop for anyone, not for kings, not for prophets, not for you or me. And every second that passes is one step closer to meeting the one who gave it to us. So the next time you glance at a clock, don't just see numbers, see opportunity. Because the truth is, time never comes back, but what you do with it echoes forever. When we talk about time, we're not just talking about the passing of hours or the turning of calendars. We're talking about life itself, the very essence of who we are. Time isn't separate from us, it is us. Every moment that goes by is a portion of our existence that is being spent, recorded and stored in our book of deeds. And that's why, in Islam, time is not simply a measure of duration. It's a measure of accountability. Allah reminds us in the Qur'an that every human being will stand before Him on the day of judgment and be questioned about how they spent their life. The Prophet FDFA said, the feet of the son of Adam will not move on the day of judgment until he is asked about his life and how he spent it, his knowledge and how he acted upon it, his wealth and how he earned and spent it, and his body and how he used it. This hadith captures something deeply psychological, that our time isn't just passing by unnoticed. It's being observed, recorded, and will one day be replayed before us, moment by moment. Imagine that every hour you've lived is being preserved. Every choice, every delay, Every opportunity you either took or ignored will stand before you, and that thought alone should reshape how we look at time. Because if our minutes are being counted, then they deserve to be valued. Philosophically, we can think of time as the currency of existence. You trade it every day for work, for pleasure, for distractions, for worship. But unlike money, once it's spent, you can never earn it back. That makes it far more precious than any wealth we could ever possess. Yet, paradoxically, it's the thing we waste most easily. We wouldn't let someone steal our savings, but we allow our time, our life, to be stolen daily by meaningless habits, empty scrolling, or aimless procrastination. In reality, what defines us is not how long we live, but how meaningfully we live within the time we're given. Some people live 80 years without purpose, while others transform lives in just 20. It's not about duration, it's about direction. And Islam teaches us that the real tragedy isn't death, it's dying before you've truly lived for Allah. There's also a deeper psychological layer here. When we misuse our time, we feel restless, anxious, and unfulfilled. That's because the soul was created with purpose. It craves meaning, and time wasted is time lived against the nature of the soul. That's why acts of worship bring peace. They align us with our true purpose, using time in a way that nourishes the heart. So the next time you find yourself saying, "I don't have time," pause and reflect. You do have time, it's just being spent somewhere else. The question is not whether you have enough of it, but whether you're using it in ways that will matter when you stand before Allah. In the end, our time is our testimony. Each second is writing our story, and one day, that story will be read back to us. So, write it well, because the ink of time never fades. One of the greatest illusions that steals our time is the idea of tomorrow. We all fall into it. We tell ourselves, "I'll start praying properly tomorrow," or "I'll fix my relationship with Allah after I've sorted out my life." It sounds harmless, even responsible, but it's one of the most deceptive traps of Shaitan. He doesn't always tell us to stop worshipping Allah, he just tells us to delay it. And that delay, repeated often enough, becomes a lifetime of missed opportunities. From a psychological point of view, procrastination comforts us. It gives us a false sense of control, as if we own time, as if tomorrow is guaranteed. But in truth, we don't even own the next breath. How many people planned for tomorrow and never lived to see it? How many times have we said, "One day I'll change," but that one day never arrived? The Qur'an captures this tragedy beautifully when Allah describes those who will regret their heedlessness in the hereafter, saying, "My Lord, if only you would delay me for a short term, so I would give charity and be among the righteous." 63:10. But by then, the time has already run out. Philosophically, the idea of tomorrow is an illusion because it never truly exists. The only moment that's real is now. Yesterday is gone, tomorrow hasn't arrived, all we truly possess is the present. Yet, most people either live trapped in the past or waiting for the future, forgetting that the only time they can actually change anything is this moment. That's why the Prophet advised us to pray as if it were our last prayer, not because he wanted us to live in fear, but because he wanted us to live fully conscious of the reality of time. The truth is, change doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins with a single decision today. Every meaningful transformation in life starts with awareness, the awareness that time is slipping, that the window of opportunity is closing with every sunrise. And the more we ignore that, the heavier our hearts become until we find ourselves spiritually numb, caught in the cycle of later. If we think deeply, procrastination isn't just a delay of action, it's a delay of purpose. It's postponing your own peace, your own growth, your own connection with Allah. When you say, I'll fix my prayer later, you're really saying, I'll feel close to Allah later. When you say, I'll start reading Qur'an later, you're saying, I'll discover my peace later. But who promised you later? This is not meant to frighten, but to awaken. Because the most empowering realization a person can have is that the future isn't where change begins, now is. Every second that passes is either a step toward Allah or away from Him. And if we truly understood that, we'd stop waiting for the perfect moment and start creating it. So the next time your mind whispers, tomorrow, remind yourself, tomorrow is a myth, only today is real. And the choices you make today will define every tomorrow that follows. When we look at how the early generations of Muslims valued time, it's truly humbling. The companions of the Prophet letter, FDF, they understood something we often forget. That time wasn't just a part of life, it was life itself. Every moment mattered because every moment was an opportunity to gain the pleasure of Allah. They didn't wait for a perfect situation or a quiet day to be productive. They lived with the awareness that every breath could be their last, and so they filled their time with purpose. If you study their lives, you'll notice something remarkable. They achieved so much, yet they had the same 24 hours that we have. What made the difference wasn't the amount of time, but the barakah, the blessing, in how they used it. When a person's intention is pure and their focus is on pleasing Allah, time expands in meaning. A short life can have an everlasting impact. That's why centuries later, we still talk about the Sahaba, the scholars, and the righteous. Their time was limited, but what they did with it made it timeless. Imam Ali once said, "Time is your capital. If you waste it, you have lost everything." Think about that deeply. In business, if you lose money, you can rebuild. If you lose health, you might recover. But when time slips away, it's irretrievable. That's why the great scholars guarded their hours with the same care we might guard our wealth. Imam Nawawi, for example, lived only 45 years, but within that short span, he authored books that continue to shape Islamic thought today. How? Because his life was filled with sincerity and discipline. He didn't waste time on what didn't bring him closer to Allah. Psychologically, these individuals lived with extraordinary mindfulness. They were deeply aware of their mortality, and that awareness sharpened their focus. They didn't allow distractions to dominate their lives. Their sense of purpose was so clear that time became an ally, not an enemy. In contrast, when we lose that clarity, time becomes something that slips through our fingers. We feel busy, but not fulfilled, active, but not productive. Philosophically, the difference between their relationship with time and ours lies in where they placed value. They saw every moment as a means of earning eternal reward, while we often measure time in worldly terms, productivity, success, achievement. But what is achievement if it doesn't lead us closer to Allah? What is productivity if it doesn't benefit our soul? The Sahaba knew that worldly success was temporary, but the impact of sincere deeds lasts forever. So maybe the real question isn't, how much time do I have? But rather, how much meaning am I placing in the time I do have? If we fill our days with remembrance, service, kindness, and reflection, then even a short life becomes a life of eternal value. Because in the end, it's not the length of your life that matters, but the light it leaves behind. If we truly understand how precious time is, the next step is learning how to honor it, how to live each day with purpose and clarity. Islam isn't a faith that only tells us what to believe, it guides us on how to live. And one of the most practical aspects of that guidance is learning how to value our moments in a world full of distractions. Because the truth is, most of us don't deliberately waste time, we simply lose it without realizing it. It slips away in small, unnoticed moments that seem harmless, until we look back and realize how much has gone. The key is intentionality, beginning each day with a clear purpose. The Prophet letter FD they taught us that actions are judged by intentions. That means the very act of waking up and saying, "Today I will live for the sake of Allah," transforms ordinary tasks into acts of worship. Your work, your studies, your conversations all can become forms of ibadah if your heart is aligned with the right intention. This awareness brings life into your time. It gives meaning to even the smallest acts because now they're connected to something eternal. From a psychological perspective, living intentionally creates focus. It reduces that restless feeling of always being busy but never fulfilled. When your time has direction, your heart feels lighter. You start noticing how peaceful it feels to disconnect from what drains you and connect to what nourishes you: prayer, Qur'an, reflection, sincere relationships. These are the moments that recharge the soul, moments that bring barakah, that sense of time expanding, of achieving more with less. And practically speaking, valuing time means protecting it. Just as you would guard something valuable from theft, guard your hours from the things that steal them: endless scrolling, idle talk, meaningless entertainment, gossip, and negativity. These things seem small, but they accumulate. They drain our spiritual energy, dull our focus, and make us forget the deeper purpose of life. Imagine if we replaced even a fraction of that wasted time with dhikr, with simply saying Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illa Allah, Allahu Akbar. These phrases may take seconds, but their weight in the scales is immeasurable. Philosophically, the way we use time reflects what we truly value. If someone wants to know what matters most to them, they should look at where their time goes. Our schedules are silent reflections of our priorities. If we claim to love Allah, but never dedicate time to remembering Him, something is out of balance. The companions of the Prophet letter FDA understood this deeply, that time spent in the remembrance of Allah was never lost time. It was invested time, the kind that builds your eternal home. So, if we want to make our lives meaningful, we must stop asking, "How much time do I have left?" and start asking, "What am I doing with the time I have right now?" Because every second you use for Allah is a second that lives forever. And the truth is, when you fill your time with what pleases Him, you'll find that time itself begins to please you. At the end of the day, everything we've spoken about the value of time, awareness of accountability, the illusion of tomorrow, the example of the righteous, and the call to live intentionally, all lead us to one central truth: our time is our story. And every story eventually comes to an end. The question is not whether our time will run out, it's what we will have done with it when it does. Every second that passes is being written into our book of deeds. Every choice, every word, every intention becomes part of that record that we will one day see again. The Qur'an tells us, "And the record of deeds will be placed open, and you will see the criminals fearful of what is written therein, and they will say, 'What is this book that leaves nothing, small or great, except that it has enumerated it?'" 18:49. That moment will come for every one of us, when the minutes we take for granted now will appear before us as deeds, visible and undeniable. From a psychological point of view, thinking about death and accountability isn't meant to depress us. It's meant to awaken us. It sharpens our focus, reminding us that every day we wake up is another chance, another page still blank, waiting for us to write something worthwhile. If we truly internalized that, we'd live differently. We'd forgive faster, love deeper, pray with more sincerity, and waste far less time on what doesn't matter. And this is where real spiritual maturity begins, when we start measuring our success, not by how much we accumulate in life, but by how much we elevate ourselves and others through the time we've been given. The greatest people aren't necessarily the ones who lived the longest or achieved the most materially. They are those who made every moment of their life a bridge to the next, who left behind goodness, guidance, and light that continues to benefit others even after they've returned to Allah. That's why the Prophet letter FDFA said, when a person dies, their deeds come to an end except for three: ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge, or a righteous child who prays for them. These are the marks of someone who understood the value of time, someone who lived beyond their years. Philosophically, this reminds us that time itself is not the enemy. It's neutral. It simply reveals what we do with it. For some, it becomes a ladder to Jannah. For others, it becomes evidence against them. The difference lies not in the amount of time, but in the awareness we bring to it. The greatest tragedy is not that life ends, but that we fail to truly live before it does. So, as you leave here today, remind yourself that your clock is ticking, and every tick is a call from Allah saying, do something meaningful with the life I've given you. Because when your final moment arrives, you won't be asking for more time. You'll be wishing you had done more with it.